welcome back. It's Adam Spagnolo here. We're here with the Local Government People's Program and we're delighted that you're tuning in. Today we're talking about a number of things. We've talked about question time at the City of Stirling. We've kind of touched on WorkSafe. But what we're also going to do today is we're going to talk about the mayoral election. And I have my special guest today, Hammersley Ward candidate Jack Garber, who will be talking us through this whole mayoral election thing. But I want to make out just a couple of things. First of all, I want to point out that there are two modes of the election of the mayor. The mayor of a city can actually be elected by either the people or by the councillors. Currently, at the City of Stirling, for instance, the mayor is elected by the councillors. Now, there is a move afoot at this stage to change that, and I understand that there's a plebiscite coming up in October as well, which I'm going to ask Jack to take us through. Perhaps the background first, Jack, and then secondly, if we could just talk about the actual plebiscite itself.
Yeah, Adam. The action to allow the ratepayers and the community to elect the mayor was taken after an electors meeting, which was held last December. In that electors meeting, there was a request for the council to consider a vote of no confidence against the CEO, Stuart Jardine. When that came up to council later in the beginning of this year, that application was transformed into a review of the planning department. So council never considered the electors' request for a vote of no confidence against the CEO.
Wow.
Following that transformation of the request for a vote of no confidence to become a review of the planning department, the voters again petitioned for a change in the way the mayor is elected.
Right.
However, in doing so, they run afoul of the Local Government Act. The Local Government Act governs how a mayor is elected.
That's correct, yes.
And how that is changed from councillors electing the mayor to the people electing the mayor.
Right.
It was the intention of the ratepayers to hold a referendum, a binding referendum on council to change that policy. However, Local Government Act doesn't actually...
There's no provision for it.
No provision for it. Mm. So what that turned out to be, that petition turned out to be a request for the council to hold a plebiscite at the next election. So in October, when voters go to vote for new council members, they will also be asked how the mayor should be elected.
Right.
Retain the present situation of council electing the mayor, or for the ratepayers to become the electors of the mayor.
Just a question, if I may there, Jack. Obviously, there is a difference between a plebiscite and a referendum.
That's correct.
The referendum, as you say, is binding, whereas the plebiscite is basically just gauging what the sort of interest, or what sort of interest is out there. And then the council, even though it might be overwhelming,
yes,
the council can still say, well, you know, we're happy with the mayor being elected by the councillors rather than the people.
Yes.
Yet, if it were a referendum, and as you say, under the Act, you can't have a referendum, is that correct?
That's not provided for. It's not provided that
right,
it can be changed by referendum.
Got it.
It actually requires a special majority of the members of council to make this change. The special majority is defined as a 75% vote.
Right.
So even a simple majority will not work.
Yeah. So effectively, there are 14 councillors, unless you've got at least 10 of them that put their hand up and say, yes, we want to change the mode of election, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. That's correct. Even with the plebiscite, even if it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important if you are a voter in Stirling, that we do show, that the people show that they want to be the electors of the mayor. And notwithstanding the fact that it is not a referendum, if we can bring forward an overwhelming vote by the population that this is what their requirement is of their councillors, it's going to be very difficult for even those members of council who, under the supermajority rule,
Yes.
not to heed. And if they don't, if council doesn't,
It will be
it's
reflected in the polls. There's no two ways about
absolutely.
that. Yes.
And it will be reflected in future voting as well.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, and look, just by way of background, I think once upon a time, the City of Stirling used to be known as the Perth Roads Board. That was sort of prior to the 60s. In the 60s, because it actually grew, it became from a rural to a semi-rural area, it then became known as the Shire of Perth. The Shire of Perth, I think it came in around about 1971, and when you're a shire, it's a president. When you become a city, you become a mayor. Now, I think it was 1981, or 71, I think, the City of Stirling, I think it's 61 a shire, 71, I think from memory, it became a city. In 71, when it became a city, the council laws of the day had two options. Option one, because that's when the new constitution for the city came in, option one was to actually elect the mayor either by the people or elect the mayor by the council. They actually decided to adopt a recommendation that all future mayors, including the first mayor, be elected by the council. And of course that stayed there for many years. Now, my view is that that's great. I mean, that worked well for the early days of the city when it only had about 50 or 60,000 inhabitants. But the City of Stirling's population now is somewhere around 240,000 people. The City of Stirling's business is no longer about roads, rates or rubbish. I mean, as you know, Jack, the City of Stirling has now become a little bit of an entrepreneur. Look at the big project they're doing out in Scarborough. Look at all these other projects that they're doing to raise revenue, because, I mean, as we've spoken before with Michael Worthington, not on this program, but certainly in relation to local government authorities need to become more entrepreneurial, because the state government doesn't have a lot of money, nor does the federal government. And because of those reasons, they've got to do other things with a view to try and raise funds. So when you've got a large local authority, you do need, in my view, a mayor that is elected by the people, not by the council laws, because it's a bit like a government minister. It's probably an old rule of thumb. Most government ministers are in safe seats, because if they don't spend too much time in their electorates, it doesn't matter, they're going to get re-elected because it's a blue ribbon seat or whatever it might be. I think it happens the same now if you've got a large local authority and you're a councillor as well as the mayor. It's really hard, and I've been in that position, it's really hard to split your time as mayor and as ward councillor. And I think we should have 2 ward councillors per every ward, so you've got your 14 councillors, and then you have your mayor who's basically overseeing the whole city. And then that particular person, whoever it might be, it could be the incumbent, whoever it is, that person can then work freely, that person can then be over the whole city rather than just an allocated area. Because, at the moment, okay, we're all in election mode, and the message I'm getting is, I don't even know who my ward councillor is.
Well, look, you're absolutely correct, Adam. And the City of Stirling is embarking on one of the largest development projects that the metro community has seen, and that is the Stirling City Centre project, which is slated to put a new CBD in years 2040, 2050 ahead of us.
Yes.
In the Osmond Park area.
Yes, yeah.
And
just so we can define that, it's basically where the council offices are. You've got Cedric Street, so you're talking about the north side of Cedric Street.
Yes.
You're talking about the south side of Cedric Street, just behind the Civic Gardens and between the station. And you're talking about, obviously, the Innaloo area around where IKEA is and so forth. So, as you've rightly pointed out, Jack, basically what's going to happen is they're looking at transcribing or transferring or transposing the CBD from where it is at the present time across to Stirling, and hence you have the name of the Stirling City Centre.
Right, clearly something we have to, we have
Discuss
to
it another
discuss.
time, certainly, yes, yes. Okay, we'll be back very shortly with some more local government